Germany, the lead singer of the popular rock band Rammstein is facing allegations of misconduct.
Hardcore music, provocative lyrics, over-the-top stage shows. The new allegations claim that those concerts also served as a venue for misconduct.
Hey! Okay? What?
Okay, so I've been covering the Rammstein controversy for the last week, and it has really kind of exploded, unfortunately. And I wanted to have a friend of mine who's been on my show before. Hey, Vanessa, what's up?
Hi. Hello.
So Vanessa's been on my show before to talk about Marilyn Manson, and you can check out, I'll link to those videos below, but, you know, friends with Marilyn Manson, you were on the set of Heart-Shaped Glasses, that whole controversy or whatever. We're not here to talk about that. But also, as it happens, in addition to that, you have a past connection to the band Rammstein, and they find themselves embroiled in a lot of controversy now. And so I thought it'd be interesting to have you on, get your opinion on what's been happening the last week. Remind me what your connection was, when was that, what were the circumstances of that?
So I didn't really start dating till I was older already. I didn't have my first boyfriend until I literally turned 18. And this was in 2001. His band, they were kind of, gaining a lot of traction at that point. And they were opening for Rammstein. And this is like the only time that Rammstein ever came to Albuquerque, because we are not a big town. We don't attract, huge pyrotechnic shows like that. And of course, me being very young, I ended up following him around for a little bit because I was just so excited I had a guy in my life. And I ended up attending the shows, and in the backstage area, everybody just kind of convenes. And I was definitely around members of Rammstein. And pretty cool thing to be experiencing at such a young age.
So you were dating a guy who in 2001 was on a tour opening for Rammstein.
Right.
This must have been a talented musician, this guy you were dating, and kind of a big deal. What was the name of his band?
The band was Crossbreed. So it was really cool to be meeting this band who was kind of like blowing up at the time, being on tour with this band who has this humongous pyrotechnic stage show. Just seeing all this stuff right after I turned 18, and it kind of opened up a whole new world in my eyes. And I was like, oh, so this is how all this goes.
I bet you're not here to claim this great intimacy or friendship with Rammstein, or the ins and outs of what was going on in their lives or their personal lives or anything like that. But you did have, it sounds like, some regular exposure to the band in a casual setting. Yeah?
Yeah, they're all just regular people. I don't know why people think that Backstage is some harem where there's orgies happening around every corner, but honestly, it's just people sitting around drinking beers, talking about where they're going to eat after the show. It's just musicians that hang out, and they happen to be on tour together, and everybody kind of convenes afterwards to loosen up and to, decompress from the craziness of the stage show and everything. So just being around them as normal people. Like, I remember seeing Till go by and being like, holy balls, that guy is tall. I don't know. It's fun. It is fun, but I mean, it's not like some magic environment where, there's harems of women.
Well, so that's what I wanted to ask you. Because I would think that way back in 2001, when we certainly didn't have, I remember those days, and I'm around your age, we're a little older, but we certainly didn't have the kinds of attitudes that we have now about Me Too and about sexuality and women needing a kind of protection, all that. So my point is, I would imagine that if Rammstein were really rowdy or out of control, or if Till Lindemann were really predatory or whatever, that would have been going on in full force in 2001. And so when people weren't even cautious about that. And so you were around, like you said, you were around Till Lindemann, you were around the band, your guy, you were touring with them. It was very casual. Did you ever get a sense of them as being, any of them, or Till particularly, but any of them as being predatory, or do they have a reputation for that or anything? Did you see anything untoward in that environment?
I know it was so long ago, so there's going to be people just discrediting, like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She hasn't been around, blah, blah, blah. But no, they're just, like I said, they're just regular people. I mean, of course, people act silly backstage, especially when there's like alcohol involved, and but there was nothing like that. I was never uncomfortable. I've never been uncomfortable in a backstage experience in my life, and I've gone to quite a lot of them. So, I mean, I don't know. And especially with those guys, like, of course they have like a different look on things because they're from a different country, but at the end of the day, they're just normal guys. And, they don't, nobody has their ego backstage that I saw where they're like, oh, I'm just going to go fuck this chick and then I'm going to go do this one. There was nothing like that, especially to a fresh faced 18-year-old who was kind of wandering around on her own back there while my guy was off with his band or what have you.
Right, right. Okay, so you dated a guy in a band that was touring with Rammstein, and so you got to be around a major, backstage environment and on a tour and everything, and sort of be exposed to that rock star environment. And then also, you were friends with Marilyn Manson, with Brian Warner, and particularly in that period when he was dating Evan Rachel Wood and was with Dita, right? When he was at, really like things were crazy around him in terms of all the fame and everything. And I guess this is my question. Do you feel like, and this is not just about those in particular, but in general, do you feel like there's this huge problem with toxic environments and predatory environments among rock stars and on rock shows, rock tours?
I have been to a lot of shows in my time, and I can't really call myself a groupie when I was younger because I didn't sleep with anybody for the most part. I mean, of course, there was, attractions here and there that led to more
flirtations.
Yeah, there you go. But I would not hesitate to call myself one if I was one, because I think that any negative, archaic connotations coming with that word are just absolutely ridiculous. But I have been hanging out with a lot of bands. I've been on tours. I think people, women in particular, I'm tired of them pushing this narrative that they are just so easily coerced and they're such fragile little flowers and they don't have any autonomy over themselves on what they choose to happen, and that these evil men are leading them into these awful situations. Regardless of how young I was, but if I wanted something, I went after it, regardless if it was of PC culture or not. If I wanted to fuck somebody, I was going to fuck somebody. And I think that this newer culture, they're just so wanting to be PC, and they're so wanting to put the blame on other people for things that they maybe regret or that they don't want to talk about. And, women are
or
powerful.
Even that they have just some ambivalence or discomfort about.
Exactly. Women are strong fucking beings, Take credit for your actions and for things that you've done. And if it was something shitty, that's horrible. But don't start, blaming it on whatever man was around. And of course, as I talked about in your last video, I've been through some really awful shit in my time. But, I don't blame men for any of the things that have happened to me. I take responsibility for stupid actions, especially when I was younger and drinking. And there just seems to be this whole victim culture that everybody wants to be the poster child of. And I think it's a complete detriment to the strength of women, and it really pisses me off.
I totally agree with you, of course, as you know. And I think, for instance, in this Rammstein situation, if people are wanting a concrete example of what we're talking about, I don't know the truth of what did or didn't happen between this Shelby woman and Till. But let's just take hypothetically Shelby's assertion. We'll take it at face value. Her assertion that Till, midway through the show, he approached her for sex and she said no. And he didn't like that, but he didn't do anything. And he even said, stay here and basically like someone will come and get you or whatever. Right. And she's acting like that. She was flipping out, and she's acting like, and a number of people are acting like that is some kind of a assault or harassment. Look, if I go, tell me if I'm crazy, Vanessa, but if I go to a rock concert and I, particularly of like a Rammstein type or whatever, and I'm told that I'm going to get a chance to meet or have a private meeting or personal or whatever meeting with this rock star, and then he hits on me. First of all, is that entirely unexpected? I don't care what anyone is saying. She said, "Oh, I asked if it was going to be sex or not." Come on, and then then someone approaches you or says something, and it just sends you to pieces. If it were me personally, I'm going to get dogged by some people for this, but I would be like, "Whoa, Till Lindemann wanted to have sex with me, dude. I have this great story from this Rammstein concert."
Yeah, same. I mean, you can't be backstage at a show or be invited to a private party and then fly off the handle when, sex is put on the table. I'm not saying that's an expectation or that's something that you should
No,
be
and I'm not
expected to
either.
do, but
Absolutely.
does nobody pay attention to like the craziness that happened, especially in the 80s with the hair bands? Like if you went backstage,
The
it
Rolling
was,
Stones. I mean,
yeah, exactly. If you were backstage, there was probably like a 90% chance somebody was going to try and bang you. Things have not changed. The whole mindset of I'm such a victim because some guy thought I was attractive and wanted to get me in bed, so I have to speak up because I've been me too'd. What the fuck? You
right,
know?
right. No, it's true. And I don't think that a number of people understand that, at least to our apparently old-fashioned way of thinking, men are allowed to make advances that make women uncomfortable. I'm not talking about harassment. I'm not talking
Yeah,
about she says no and then you keep trying, or you make her workplace miserable or touching or when you're not supposed to, or
absolutely not.
whatever. But But there are a number of people in the media and a number of people online who seem very disturbed by the idea of groupies in general, the idea that perhaps one of the things that was going on with these Rammstein concerts is that they were trying to allow for women who wanted to get close to or have sex with Till to have that opportunity, and then yes, him to have that opportunity too. And so I'm not saying
Yeah,
that that's what happened or didn't happen or whatever, but I'm just saying even there's that sort of worst case scenario that people are getting all frothed up about. I don't see where the assault is. I don't see where. I mean, do you?
not at all. I mean, like you said, if there was some big rock star that was, wanting to do things with me, but you said no, of course, they can get upset. Men have feelings too.
Well, and can I just say
Um,
too, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just
yeah,
say,
you're
because
good.
this hasn't been brought up yet, I don't trust. Look, you and I both know that when people have personality disorders, they don't process what other people are saying or
Oh,
generating.
yeah.
They don't process it correctly. Like Amber Heard, she would say, Johnny's yelling at me, and he's just trying to speak to her normally, naturally. I
Yep.
do not believe that Shelby's, the accuser's impression of reality, that we can trust that. So when she says that, I told him no, and Tia was so angry, you so angry, I don't know what that means, and I don't trust it. Sorry. I'm just curious based on what you remember with these guys, because you were around them in 2001, like I said, when things were a lot more lax and you were very young. People keep saying, "Oh, there's an age imbalance, there's a power imbalance." And what I've tried to point out before on my channel is every relationship has some kind of imbalance, whether we're talking about
Of course it
intelligence,
does.
money, looks, what have you. But you were very young. So I guess what I'm wondering is, like, how do you, in your mind, how do you square the allegations and the image that the media are creating and trying to create of Till Lindemann and of Rammstein with what you experienced when you were this vulnerable, teenager hanging out with them nightly or whatever?
Ew, like I said, it was quite a while ago, and I know people are just going to use that to discredit anything that I say. But I was never approached by any of them. They were never like, "Ooh, fresh meat."
And
Like,
again, I know there was a lot you weren't privy to and it's casual, but did you ever observe anything that concerns you between them and other women? Or did you like underage, like, really like shady stuff with really young girls there, or Till seeming to be very predatory?
never even saw them around other women. I never saw them around groupies, or I never, there was nothing sexual happening with anybody at that time. So it was, the whole thing just kind of boggles my mind. Like, if 22 years ago they weren't being absolutely insane with all these parties, like why
Mm.
why is it happening now when they're all in like their 50s and 60s?